Crikey. Well, thank you so much for sticking around to listen to me speak. It is only 15 minutes. I've got a script. I'm going to stick to it as best I can. But firstly, I'd really like to say that it's an absolute privilege to be here representing Channel 4 today. It's wonderful to be in a room with so many people who think the same as me. It's wonderful. So I'd like to just say thank you very much to Mr. Essel, to Michael Fenbeck and the other guys for giving me the opportunity. And a slight apology, touch of asthma at the moment. Who would embark upon a career that involves public speaking when they've got asthma? I don't know, what's all that about? So, 15 minutes or thereabouts on Channel 4's thoughts on employing disabled people, the why and the how. Now this is where I see if I can get the clicker to work. Which button is it? Right, okay, we're off. So, Channel 4, if you're not familiar with it, was created in 1982 by Margaret Thatcher's government. And it was set up as a public service broadcaster. And Channel 4 occupies a unique position in UK broadcasting in that we're owned by the public, but funded through advertising. Channel 4's remit from the very start, set by the government, was to be distinctive, to innovate, educate, stimulate debate, and appeal to a diverse audience. Channel 4's vision is for an inclusive and diverse workplace and industry, a place where we respect, embrace, and harness the uniqueness of individuals and their talents. We want viewers to feel that Channel 4 shows Britain the way it is, full of difference and variety. We want programme makers to feel that Channel 4 enables them to produce challenging, creative, diverse content that tells the stories of an inclusive and diverse society, utilising the talents of all. And we want our staff to feel that they can be themselves, they can be different, and be welcomed with open arms. So in that respect, diversity is very much within our DNA. Our remit also means that we have a duty to foster change within our industry, particularly in our network of independent production companies and other partners. We therefore want to harness the power of TV to go beyond our programmes and start a wider conversation in the media industry. So we see more disabled people appearing on screen and create a pipeline of disabled talent working in the TV industry. There are two levers that we can pull to do this. The first is to influence our industry partners and suppliers when casting programmes and building production teams. The second is to change our own backyard at Channel 4, the people who work there in the end-to-end chain from commissioning through to broadcast. Last year, we used our self-designated Year of Disability to pull those two levers. And just a word about the Year of Disability. This was timed to coincide with the Rio 2016 Paralympics. Channel 4 is the UK's broadcaster for the Paralympics. Phenomenal success in London 2012, and we built upon that with Rio 2016, broadcasting over 700 hours of disability sport. And it was just a perfect opportunity for us to capture the audience's imagination, the public's imagination around disability, and therefore further some goals of our own in terms of increasing the representation of disabled people in the industry. And I just realised I should have flicked forward on the slide. There we go. So, what did we set out to do? We made ourselves some very strong commitments around increasing the representation of disabled people on screen, off screen, and in our own backyard at Channel 4. We committed to double the number of disabled people on screen as actors, experts, presenters, or contributors in 20 of our biggest shows, such as One Born Every Minute, Hollyoaks, and Come Dine With Me. And I'd imagine if you don't live in the UK, you might not have seen those, but they are available on all four. Off-screen, we committed to progress the careers of 20 mid-level disabled people within our 20 biggest suppliers, providing bespoke career advice and development for each person, helping them into production roles on programmes such as 24 Hours in A&E, or writing roles on drama programmes. And in our own backyard at Channel 4, we set ourselves the target of having 50% of our apprenticeship places filled that year by disabled people and 30% of our work experience placements. But our need for diversity goes beyond our remit. In practical terms, it's absolutely critical to our success. Firstly, in a competitive market, we must have the best talent, so we have to attract talent from the biggest pool possible. We don't care about the talent's gender, ethnicity, social status, or anything else. We simply want the best person for the job. Secondly, we know that diversity drives creativity. People with different backgrounds, different perspectives on life, different experiences will produce different and standout television programmes. And thirdly, we can't afford to exclude any group when we're recruiting, and that obviously means disabled people too. About 16% of the UK workforce has a disability. So can we really afford to turn away almost 1 in 5 people when we're trying to find talent? Simple answer is no, we can't afford to do that. We're also changing public perceptions around disability. The Channel's approach has been to follow the dual goals of getting people talking about disability whilst making it routine on screen. A great example of this is our programme called The Last Leg. This is an award-winning topical comedy show, talk show. We first aired it as an accompaniment to the 2012 Paralympics as a way of demystifying disability sport. It's fronted by three men. 2 of them are comedians and 1 is a sports journalist, and 2 of those 3 are disabled. What really made Last Leg stand out back in 2012 was the use of its hashtag, #IsItOK, which encouraged people to tweet questions about disability they weren't sure were acceptable to ask. For example, is it okay to high-five someone who's got no hands? By using humour, and often very cheeky or irreverent humour, it's helped remove stigma around disability and help break down the barriers between disabled and non-disabled people. And it's gone from being a vehicle to demystify disability sport into one of our flagship entertainment programmes. Another quick example, if I may. This example of how we're normalising disability on screen involves a little girl called Daisy. Daisy appeared in our programme, The Secret Life of 5-Year-Olds. This is the latest in the series that we've been running, looking at how children build relationships, play with each other, how they establish their place in society. So basically, we eavesdrop on children being children. In this particular series, when we're looking at 5-year-olds, it featured a little girl called Daisy who has cerebral palsy, and she uses a wheelchair. There were no big announcements about Daisy appearing in the programme. No fanfare, nothing. She just appeared, just like one of the other children. I knew nothing about this taking place. I'll say a little bit more about that in a second. So for me as a viewer, I flicked on to Channel 4 that evening. I saw this little girl in a wheelchair, CP, playing with other children, interacting with them. And I thought, this is fantastic. Because what happened is we were able to see how the other children interacted with her. We could see their attitudes, their behaviours. We could see their honesty and their naivety. And for the adults watching, the children were holding up a mirror to the way that they behave. Now, the thing is that Daisy didn't just appear on the programme by magic. My colleagues put a lot of effort into finding her, making it happen, and going to the extent of making sure that the school and playground where we were filming was made fully accessible for her. And everything that was done to make that environment accessible was left after the filming finished. So it just makes me wonder, if you look at your own countries, how many of your broadcasters would actually go to that degree of effort? Now I'm just going to finish up by looking at what we're all here to talk about today, and that's disability and employment. So, Channel 4's approach to this topic. A question that I'm often asked by employers is, how can we recruit more disabled people? And that's obviously been a recurring theme through the course of today's discussions. My answer to this question is twofold. Firstly, don't think about recruitment as being an isolated activity. Instead, think of it as being part of an end-to-end employment journey, and then consider the barriers that disabled people face along that journey. For example, how do you attract disabled people to apply for roles in your organisation? Do you have a barrier-free selection process that helps them show themselves off to their best abilities? How good are you at onboarding them, for example, making adjustments? How good are you at actually developing their talent and helping them thrive in their careers and keep working for you? My second answer to this question about how to recruit more disabled people is that you actually need to sort out the right-hand side of this journey first before you will have success on the left. You need to demonstrate that you're a great place for disabled people to work before you will attract more of them. Therefore, focus first on retention, then recruitment. This end-to-end or holistic thinking has been captured in the disability strategy that I've helped Channel 4 define. Channel 4's vision is to be the best employer in the UK for disabled people by 2020. Now, Channel 4 will never be so arrogant as to make that claim, but there's absolutely no harm in having it as a stated goal. We're going to achieve that vision through 3 pillars of work. Those are having the best culture, the best capability and engagement, and the best infrastructure, taking those each in turn. The best culture will be driven top down by the leadership team and result in Channel 4 being a place where there's no stigma about disability and where disability is understood and embraced. The best capability and engagement means equipping our managers with the knowledge and confidence to support their disabled colleagues, help them thrive in their careers, and give our disabled colleagues the confidence and tools to achieve success, both at Channel 4 and beyond in the wider industry. And lastly, the least exciting of these 3 pillars of work, I normally say the least sexy of the 3, is the infrastructure. But infrastructure is critically important to getting this stuff right. And by the best infrastructure, I mean things like the best policies, the best processes, the best practices that enable us to embed best practice around disability throughout the organisation and make it actually become business as usual. I'm going to finish up by showing you a video that has helped us start our journey towards having the best culture. Last year, we wanted to encourage more people working at Channel 4 to share with us whether they had a disability or not, and in doing so, help us understand whether we were doing the right kind of things around attracting, recruiting, and retaining disabled talent. As part of this, we ran what we called our Telus campaign. And as part of that, colleagues with disabilities volunteered to share their stories with the whole organisation in a series of This Is Me videos. The videos and the associated messages and reassurances around the purpose of the campaign and confidentiality of what they were sharing with us has resulted in us finding out that we had almost 4 times as many people working at Channel 4 than we first thought. I've got to say that as a disability consultant, I have not seen a data sharing campaign as successful as this. And absolutely critical to its success was the messaging. Disabled people will only share with you that they've got a disability if they firstly feel reassured that there's nothing bad is going to happen. Secondly, what's in it for me? What benefits do I get out of it? And Channel 4 was able, through the messaging and communications, to reassure people about confidentiality, reassure them about the purpose of why we wanted to know. We didn't use the language of disclosure, we talked about sharing. So, let me just show you the video, which is, it's a compilation of all of the This Is Me videos that were produced.
2016 is Channel 4's self-designated Year of Disability. It's the Paralympic year, we are the Paralympic broadcaster, and so there are all sorts of creative ways, hopefully, that we can make a difference.
This staircase, I'm not sure I feel too comfortable about going up there. It's just one of those things where TV compounds and TV trucks aren't designed for people like me in mind.
I realised I was not going for certain opportunities in case I'd have to write, or, you know, someone would see my pads, or I'd be in meetings and I'd kind of write really, really messy, just in case if anybody's looking over my shoulder, they can't see that I'm spelling something wrong.
Yeah, you're so frightened that people are going to judge you. And I can guarantee you there's a lot more people with depression at work than you think.
If someone's reading what I'm trying to say, that worries me. Worrying at what they're thinking about. When they're reading my words, it's like, God, is that what he thinks like?
It's actually really tricky for me to identify people just in passing. So unless you're talking or you make a point of saying hello, and that can, on occasion, be a little bit isolating. And it is one of those barriers that everybody can help to bring down.
We've done a lot of great work with superhumans and making disability, normalising it in society, but mental health feels like it's almost like their final taboo.
It's actually just saying, should we have a cup of tea, let's have a chat, how are things going? And just doing that as opposed to kind of having that awkward feeling barrier type thing that doesn't really help at all.
I learned not to be embarrassed about asking questions. The more questions you ask, the better. But crucially, remember the answers, and you're building a trust basically between the two of you.
It's really good that I have a manager who will be able to be like, okay, this is what I need you to do. And she doesn't see me as a burden. She doesn't see me as being stupid or lazy or anything like that. She's like, I understand that you have dyslexia and I will do this to help you. And it allows me to just sort of develop and become a better person at my job.
You know, when people send an email out and they say, does anybody have any dietary requirements? It's actually really helpful when people have sent an email that says, does anybody have any access requirements? Because it's much easier to have a conversation if somebody's kind of opened the door a little bit to have that conversation in the first place.
Try remember what their strengths are and try and like play up to those as much as you can, because it's not nice to feel like you're constantly struggling in certain areas. It's nice to sometimes be reminded that you do excel in other areas.
You don't just support someone getting the job done, you have to support them mentally, physically, whatever way you need to do it.
Talking about it is the first stage. You can go and see your employee reps, you can go and speak to someone on HR, it's all completely confidential.
What I really need from my boss and colleagues is just that sense of treating me like, you know, I'm Andy. I'm not Andy with a disability. I can do the job just as well as anyone else, and I want to get to that point where they just don't see the disability, they forget about it.
I think if we want to get to this place that is more inclusive, where everybody feels comfortable, all of us kind of need to be prepared to get a little bit uncomfortable along the way.
Just before moving on to my concluding slide, let me just highlight just a couple of things might not have been immediately apparent from that video. Firstly, huge range of disabilities and impairments, from a producer-director who had no arms at all. Not easy working out on site, but he was able to do it. Continuity announcer, who, to all intents and purposes, is blind. Chap called John Allison, who is Executive Creative Director at our in-house agency for creative, has a condition called ADHD. He's written a really interesting article. If you Google beautiful weirdos wanted, not an easy one for me to say, beautiful weirdos wanted, it talks about how his ADHD has actually been supercharging his creativity. And although it's a disability, it's actually brought enormous value into the workplace. It comes back to the difference and how diversity drives creativity. So, let me just conclude. Channel 4 challenges the world to see disability in a different way. We take practical steps to opening TV to those people who might be excluded, both those watching it and those working in it. We need diverse talents, and we can't afford to turn away or lose people who are disabled. And with the disability strategy that we've now put in place, we've got a pretty solid approach to getting it right. Thank you very much for your time.
So much, Graeme. You can see, I really urge as many of you as can to go and check out Channel 4. As a broadcaster, what they have done is so unique and has so far-reaching impact. And yes, they have run incredible campaigns, but for me, what's so interesting about Channel 4 is not only are they reframing the way we understand and see disability in the media, but the appointment of Graeme WHIPPY internally into Channel 4 as a consultant, because Graeme is a rock star at this, means they are taking that seriously right throughout the business. This man is really, really one of those people who makes stuff happen. So a huge round of applause to Graeme WHIPPY. I urge you to get in touch with him. He really is, I believe, one of the rock star consultants. So a big thank you.